Hello and happy Wednesday, everyone. Welcome back to another stream here on our American Family Insurance DreamBank page. My name is Hannah, and I'm a dream curator here at the DreamBank. And before we get started today, I wanted to mention our upcoming virtual Dream Summit. This signature program is a free virtual experience designed to help you discover and revitalize your dreams in the company of a supportive, engaged community of like-minded dreamers. Some of our featured keynotes include Glennon Doyle, Tan France, the Scott brothers, Daniel Pink, and Chef Jeff Henderson. So to learn more about the event and reserve your spots, you can head over to our website, www.amfam.com/dreambank to find out more. Back to today's event. This afternoon, I have the honor of introducing our featured speakers, Amy Ackermann and Holly Kollwelter. Amy and Holly, both partners at Core Endeavors Coaching and Consulting, have tapped into their individual and combined passions and strengths to build a holistic coaching and consulting business to help others thrive. Core Endeavors offers customized frameworks and ongoing support to help people and organizations establish vision and priorities by leveraging strengths and values, ultimately leading to powerful change and transformation. Just as building a solid physical core helps you find the strength for nearly any activity, building a strong self or organizational core will help support you or your business through easy and challenging times. If you have any questions throughout the event, leave them in the comments and we'll get to your questions at the end. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming our wonderful speakers this afternoon, Holly and Amy.
Hello.
Hi there. Thanks to all of you for investing in yourselves and for choosing to be here with us on this sunny Madison afternoon. I'm not sure if people in the Dane County area can hear. It must be the first Wednesday of the month because the tornado sirens are going off and I can hear them outside the window here. I'm Amy, that is Holly, and we are Core Endeavors, and a special shout out to us. We're celebrating a milestone anniversary for our organization today, so we couldn't be more thrilled than to be sharing that with all of you as well as each other here today. So we are going to talk about being to becoming and how you can bloom into being your best self. Excuse me. I am here in my home office. Holly is in her home office. Her cat is outside the door. My dog has decided to join us for today. He's under strict instruction to behave himself, so we'll see how things go. As we get started, please do grab a paper and pencil. There's information that we'll share that you may want to capture for later. And just a couple of tidbits here before we get started. You may be wondering a little bit more about what is this workshop. Well, we like to say that it's a mindset shift. We're going to lay the foundation for possibilities to come. And just as a bit of a caveat, it's a taste of a full workshop series that we offer for personal transformation. At times you may feel like it or we are rushed, or that you find yourself saying, but I need more time here. And that's really understandable. And we hope that you'll bear with us. We've picked out and the most important pieces here so that you can fully understand these transformation steps and get started on your own. There are 4 stages of personal growth. We're going to go through each of them here, and we'll share some tools during and at the end of our talk with you today. Here's a couple of tips on how to get the most out of the workshop for yourselves, in addition to taking some notes along the way. As Hannah said, please type questions or comments and respond to some of the inquiries that we pose in the chat if you're interested and willing to do so. Excuse me. There will be a link provided for some documents in a Google Drive folder that we've put together to connected to the workshop and our time together today. On purpose, we are pretty low tech. So we're coming to you through the tech streams, but we will hold up our fingers and some signs here and there, but we don't have a PowerPoint presentation that we follow. We want to just feel like we're there with you presently. And so as we get started here, the last tip is just to open your mind and your heart, to take a deep breath in and push it out, and really just get present and dig in. So after our breath here, we want to start with some words that were curated by a good friend of Core Endeavors, a gentleman by the name of Paul Wesselman. Some of you may know him as the Ripples guy. If not, Hannah will put into the chat, there's a link to his website, and you can get some weekly splashes of inspiration from him. So if you're not familiar, check him out to learn more and to get involved. But he does, as I said, a weekly splash of inspiration and information. This particular one really resonated with us as we talk about our Being to Becoming series. And it's taken from his Ripples number 998, which is called Becoming You. And he also has a podcast that he cutely calls the Pondcast, that also he'll read these to you. But part of that are the following two quotes. So, our job in life is not to shape ourselves into some ideal we imagine we ought to be, but to find out who we already are and become it. That was from Stephen Pressfield. The second quote is, there is no such thing as a perfect vision of you. Every day, you'll make choices that change who you're going to be. Who you are becoming is not finished, which means you can be different no matter who you've been up to now. And that comes from Brian Andreas, also known as Kai Sky. So with these things in mind, where you are still and always becoming who you're going to be, let's set an intention for our time together. And we like to do this so that you can really focus and feel present and connected to yourself and to what we're doing in the workshop. So for your intention, we ask, how will you show up today? What will you choose to focus on? How will you be? What's your mindset for the next hour? Feel free to type some of the answers to these into the chat if you'd like to share. Again, how will you show up today? What will you focus on? How will you be? And what's your mindset for the next hour? It's an opportunity for you to fully be present and to share in the day with your truest intention for yourself. All right, we've got intentional, focused, open. Woohoo! That's the trifecta for the win there from Michelle. All right, awesome. Curious and open. We have from Paul Wesselman, our Ripples guy. Shout out, Paul. All right, so we're going to step into the 4 stages of personal growth. And the first one is reflect. So reflect, reflection, reflecting, but reflect. So the outcomes for this particular section are to build awareness and to become ready for change. So it's really foundational stuff. When you start any intentional change, it's important to meet yourself where you are without judgment and to understand your current state. So with that in mind, we ask you, what are your current challenges? What could be different? What aspects of your life would you like to change? Type those into the chat as well if you'd like to share. But what could be different? What aspects of your life would you like to change? What are your current challenges? These could really be anything, and those that really resonate with or for you. They can be really small things that are nitpicking at you, or they could be really big, gigantic things that you want to identify and tackle. So as we continue moving forward, feel free to type those in if you'd like. A couple of things as you think about reflection, excuse me, to engage yourself. We have put this particular tool, excuse me, into our toolbox, our folder for you, but it's called, I'm just going to hold it up here for a reference, it's called the Life Priorities Gauge. And it's a tool that allows you to assess several areas of your life to understand where you are and what's most important to you. We've included a link, as you said, in the folder, and it's got things like areas of health, relationships, recreation, career, personal development, spirituality, etc. And so it's something we pulled together, and we find it's helpful for ourselves and our clients to really ground and to be intentional about where we're going. Also, the happiness rating scale. This is just a quick touch point that you can do at any time to just check in with yourself, be it to set up for a full change or to just sort of do a litmus test along the way. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how happy are you? Really, how happy are you? 1 being not so happy, 5 being super duper awesome happy. The other thing to think about is, how happy do you want to be? In theory, are we going to really walk around at a 5 all the time? Probably not. And sometimes that 3 or that 4 or even the 2 is as happy as we're wanting or able to be in the moment. So again, no judgment, just meeting yourself where you are and where you think you want to be on that happiness rating scale. You also want to understand your own internal dialogue. So I know people who say that they've got a narrative happening all the time in their heads. And for some of that, it's constant. For some of us, that's constant. And for some of us, it just sort of reaches out. And sometimes that narrative doesn't necessarily serve us so well. So we ask, what stories or statements are you telling yourself about yourself? Consider the following regarding something you say to yourself about yourself. Where did that story or statement come from? Is it your story or is it someone else's? Have you adopted something that's really theirs and not yours, or something they have inflicted upon you? Is this story or statement true for you now? It may have been something that was very true and resonant in a past life or a past time frame, but it may not be true anymore or be serving you well. And then finally, is this story or statement contributing to or undermining your happiness? Again, back to that happiness scale. But is it helping or hurting as far as how happy you want to be? Is it holding you back? And then the final question, and the big one, is, do you choose to live this story or statement, or is it time to write a new one? You get to choose. You get to decide what you're going to adopt and what you're going to listen to and what language you're going to use with yourself. We'll get into more of these as we go through. So now reflect on your life and what you care about most deeply. What's most important to you, foundationally and fundamentally? Again, if you'd like to share, feel free to type that into the chat. But what is most important to you? Foundational, fundamentally, what grounds you, what inspires you, what holds value for you, what's most important? And connected to that is, what is your deepest wish for yourself in your life? What do you want more than anything in the world? What's that deepest wish? With both of these questions, we encourage you to dream a bit. Dreaming is a really big deal and something we kind of lose touch with as adults for a lot of the time, unless it's really part of how we're wired or part of our everyday living. Think about when you were a kid and you used to play all these make-believe games. That was dreaming, right? That was what-ifing, and how the world could be and what you want to be and how you want to show up. Also think about our natural state of sleeping. Our bodies, our minds, we dream every night. We may not always remember those dreams, and some of them may be a little wild and wacky, but our body succumbs to dreaming as a natural state of restoration and reflection. So how can you tap into that? We do have an actual dream workshop, or part of our full-blown workshop that we do, but we don't have enough time to go through that here in the mini workshop. So we're going to just give you a couple of tips so that you can walk yourself through this on your own. When you're ready to do a full dream, find a comfortable and inspiring space. We don't suggest that you just sit in your office and dream. And yet, if that's where you feel the most connected to yourself and what could be, absolutely. but find a comfortable and inspiring space. Think about experiencing life through all of your 5 senses: touch, taste, smell, etc. Really engage your creativity. Think about what brings you joy, what inspires you, who, and more importantly, how do you want to be? And then dream broadly, deeply, creatively, and authentically without limitations. Think about those dreams you have in the night. There are no limitations there. This is your dream. You get to decide what it is going to be. So we encourage you at some point here in these next couple days and weeks to set aside a gift to yourself and be able to dream. And then finally, reflection is about building awareness. Approach it with openness and curiosity. You want to employ a 3-pronged approach. One is acceptance. Doesn't mean that you're agreeing to how things are. You're accepting how they are. It allows you to just disengage and to be present differently, so to accept. The other is kindness, to approach yourself and the situation with kindness. And then finally, linked to kindness is self-compassion. Meet you where you are. Use the words or language you would use in encouraging a friend with yourself. Have that kind of self-compassion and kindness and acceptance. If we meet ourselves with judgment and criticism, we reinforce the sense that there is something wrong with us or that we are bad. When you change your mindset and your language, you change your experience. Mindfulness is also connected to this. And so being mindful, there's something that is a scientific fact that's between a stimulus and a response. There is this space between, right? There's this space between. That space is our ability to choose the response. And so often we go on default. We just let that autopilot kick in and move over and move on. So in that space between is that growth and freedom. And there's a technique that we use, and it's actually used a lot with rehabilitation services. Holly's background is in counseling and social work, and mine with coaching and human resources. It's something that really, not just in the world of rehabilitation, but also in everyday just mindfulness and connecting with yourself. So it's called SOBER. It stands for an acronym. I hold this up. Again, this is in the file folder that you have access to. It's just a nice reminder that you can print out. But S, sober, stop. Whatever it is that you're doing or that's happening right now that you can control, but stop. And then observe what's happening to your body and your mind. How are you feeling? What are you thinking? But observe. Again, don't judge. Just observe. Be present. Breathe. Oh, breathing, breathing, breathing. That's all about mindfulness and meditation. And we did a big breath at the beginning, but your shoulders physically relax. Your body relaxes. It's a cue to your autoimmune response to just let go and get out of that high alert state. Expand your awareness so that you can look at the situation more objectively, sort of that bigger picture, higher level. And then finally, respond mindfully and intentionally. Again, this doesn't take a whole lot of time. We go through it, but you can sort of work through this really quickly and set up almost a mantra for yourself when you feel yourself conflicted or jumping to a response. And then finally, we'll just have a plug for meditation. There are a lot of books and websites and videos that are out there. If you just do any sort of a web search for meditation or presence practices, there's a lot that comes up. There are also a couple of apps. Calm, Insight Timer, and Headspace are 3 that we like and use frequently. So that's there. So that was our quick mini workshop on reflecting. The second stage, Holly's going to take us into, and that is reframing.
Yes, so moving into phase 2, Reframe, and I will add one other app, just a shout out to Healthy Minds. if you're in Madison, Wisconsin, it's sort of where the birthplace is. And so that's another really good app to use while you're walking. Walking meditation and mindfulness is really critical to people who don't feel like they can be sort of sitting stationary for too long. And so there's a lot of different ways you can do that. So just a quick plug there. The other thing, if you see me going like this, it's because there's a fly who's decided to infiltrate my space. So I apologize. And so there might be a reaction here and there. And so that's what's happening here. But I will try to mindfully breathe through that fly and not react to it, as Amy talked about. All right, so into reframe. So a couple of outcomes that we have just for this really brief section here. This is about, Amy talked about that ongoing narrative in the story. So resetting your negative self-talk. We like to think of this as your inner critic, your gremlin. That gremlin that's champing in your ear. And some of us have a louder gremlin than others. And some of us, that gremlin just is louder in periods of stress and just will not go away. And so we like to think of that sort of inner critic as that sort of that naysayer. And that naysayer is trying to help you, it's trying to serve you, it's trying to protect you. But at the same token of things, we have to think about how we work with that and not against that. The other thing, outcome for this particular portion is really to understand your triggers. Knowledge is power. I'm sure you've all heard that before. Knowing what your triggers are, being honest about what those triggers are, and then really figuring out, can I prevent the trigger? And not always. Oftentimes you just can't. You get triggered when you get triggered. But when that happens, what do you do with that? And so as Amy was saying, it's sort of that space before the response. That's the pure power that you have to sort of make that choice. And there's a true freedom in that. And then really just getting out of your own way. Sometimes we're our own worst enemies, probably often. We're our biggest critics again. And so how do we get out of our own ways? So these are some of the things we're going to tackle in this speed 10 minutes. One thing we want to draw your attention to is a tool. Again, we have a link I think Hannah can put in the chat as well. So there is a woman by the name of Gretchen Rubin, and we like to think of her as sort of this happiness, habits, your tendencies kind of a guru. She's written a lot of books. The reference that I'm going to share with you is from the book Better Than Before. So she has developed what's called the Four Tendencies quiz. And in the book, she talks more deeply about these four tendencies. And the four tendencies are, and you can decide for yourself as I speak them out loud, what you think you are, and then take the quiz. And then you can really figure out what it is that you really are. So the four tendencies, Gretchen says that you're either an obliger, an upholder, a rebel, or a questioner. Now, not everybody fits in a perfect little bucket. We find that. So some of us might be a upholder or an obliger with some rebel tendencies. I think that's our friend Amy over there, if I remember correctly. And so it's a really kind of cool, neat tool. It's a pretty quick quiz, and it's really about how do you meet inner and outer expectations. And so if I'm an obliger, I'm sort of meeting sort of my inner and outer expectations in a certain way. And I don't want to give too many secrets. Please take the quiz. And again, during our workshop, we dive much more into these tendencies that unfortunately we don't have a lot of time to do today. So again, Gretchen Rubin, the Four Tendencies, make it happen if you haven't already. And then back to the negative self-talk. So Amy did a really nice sort of lay of the land foundation for the stories that we're telling each other in the reflect section. That, again, ongoing narrative, the chatter, the critic. And one of the really cool things, super simple, and again, we're all into simplicity. When I was working my previous job, I started to sort of get introduced to the idea of what stories am I telling myself. And often you think about in a work environment too, there's conflict, personal, of course, but you think about some of these interactions that you have and you walk away and you start thinking, well, Bob, who does he think he is? And does he not respect me? What does he think? And then all of a sudden that narrative, you can see how it starts to sort of slip into this really negative chatter and talk. Post-it notes are a wonderful thing. I often call myself a guidance counselor, or in my previous life, with all the Post-it notes I have around. But on your laptop, wherever, on your front door, on the way out, what stories am I telling myself? It's just a good way, again, to reframe and ground yourself back into, especially when you feel yourself sort of spinning into that negative chatter. Another way to think about it is this. And Amy and I are big fans of and have done a book club with the book called You Are a Badass. Sorry for the swear word, but that's the name of the book, by Jen Cicero. And in her book, it's a pretty powerful book too. And again, you kind of have to, be okay with some of the tongue-in-cheek stuff, some of the, not so flavorful words that she might use in it, but the essence is really good. And so she talks about in her book, our thoughts become our words become our beliefs become our actions become our habits become our realities. So that's kind of a lot. And I took the liberty of writing out this little screamy man here, but it's really, again, thoughts, words, beliefs, actions, habits, realities. So sometimes it just helps to sort of give us a framework for what's going on within our own sort of internal systems. And so the more we can break it down like that, and the more you can use sort of cues for yourself to kind of ground yourself in what is happening. And it happens to everybody, to some of us more than others. And so these are some really powerful tools to be able to use to understand and sort of, again, have a framework for that. The other thing, quickly, about self-sabotaging behaviors. We all have them. Some, again, maybe have more than others. Some are aware. What are yours? I'm not going to ask you to self-disclose here unless you really want to, but what are yours? We all have them. Get real with yourself. So a couple of examples: not saying how you feel, saying yes when you mean no, talking yourself out of working out because you deserve to watch Netflix, talking yourself out of all kinds of things. Those are really self-sabotaging behaviors. And yes, Christopher, absolutely, links, all the things that we're sharing here, we have links and tools and resources, and we'll give you some information in terms of how to reach out if you want something else that maybe you missed. No problem. Okay, so again, sabotage. Again, little book that we like to have sort of, and this is a nice little one to just have because it's very small on your bedside or wherever. It's called Sabotage. And the writer is Emma Gannon, Gannon. And again, it's 70 pages, so it's pretty quick. It's sort of like a resource guide that you can have at the side of your bed table. Anyway, so I wanted to read a quick sort of excerpt from here, but she talks about ridding yourself of sabotaging behaviors is simply about putting yourself in a position where you are allowing your dreams to come true by taking the time to identify what they are in the first place. What Amy talked about, your big dreams. What are they? Don't be afraid to go there. And then becoming an active participant in welcoming things in, instead of freaking out at the sight of them. It's not about shrinking away from your dreams out of fear. So let that sink in for a minute. Again, allow yourself to go there. It's very, very powerful. Don't be afraid of it. Step into it. Little bites, little pieces at a time. All right. Switching gears, habits, quick crash course on a lesson of sort of the unhealthy, we have four unhealthy types of habits that come based on our underlying energy: wanting, resistance, distraction, doing. Okay, so what are wanting? Wanting could look like food. It could look like alcohol. It could look like shopping. It could look like drugs. These are feeding our addictions, feeding our cravings. That's some examples of habits of wanting, unhealthy habits of wanting. Habits of resistance. This is really where it's sort of the avoiding. You're don't wanting to feel the feels, as we say. So anything you can do to sort of resist against that. I'm fine, everything's fine. Then we get into the distraction. This is a big one. Checking out. Netflix, social media, scrolling mindlessly because you're resisting, and then you're using distraction. Doing. So are you always on the go? Are you always sort of stressed, anxious, maybe frenetic energy, leaning into the future at all times? Okay, great. We're talking about dream for the future, but we're also talking about there's the calmness that comes with it when you're always doing and avoiding over here, avoiding sitting with yourself, avoiding listening to what's really going on, avoiding leaning into that big dream. That's an unhealthy habit of too much doing. So some things that I'm going to ask you, and again, this is for yourself. What resonates with you? Wanting, distraction, resistance, doing. What resonates with you? What can you identify with? And then identification is the first step. Acknowledgement without judgment. And then back to awareness, that mindfulness. This is what I'm doing, when I'm doing it, and why I'm doing it. Then you can start untangling these patterns. You have to address the energy that leads to the habit. So you're dealing with the roots and you're learning to tolerate and navigate those really uncomfortable, triggering, difficult experiences. And then vulnerability, the V word. It's a buzzword. We hear it all the time, but you have to be honest with yourself. You can't lie to yourself. Only then will you begin to experience the power of true and lasting change. Now, I'm going to move into re-energize, but I realized that my laptop's going to die in 2 minutes. I think I have to turn a light on. So I'm going to do that really quickly and see if that works. Did that work? Oh no, I just have to plug it back in. Okay. Here we go. All right, that's what happens. So I'm okay, reframe. All right, so let's get into the re-energize section. This is phase 3. This is where the rubber hits the road. This is where the foundation of reflect comes in. You're reflecting, you're reframing all of those thoughts, ideas. Now we're moving into where the real work happens, the magic comes in here. This is where the outcomes are, you're solidifying your confidence that you've got this, and there aren't any excuses. No more excuses. So here's where we really commit to the practice. So Amy at the beginning asked, what's your intention for today? Intention. Intentionality is huge. Intention alone, though, is not enough. You also need mindfulness, which we've been talking about, and repetition. So the repetition is what we're going to talk about. This is the practice. It's very easy to say, meditation doesn't work for me. I tried it once. Mindfulness, it doesn't work for me. I tried it once. Oh, I tried to break that habit. It didn't work for me. You have to repeat it over and over and over again. So step 1, become aware of those unhelpful habits that we just talked about in Reframe. Pick a habit right now to yourself. You don't have to throw it out in the chat unless you really want to. But again, that will help with accountability. But pick something. Pick something that you feel like right now is the time. Could be little, like Amy said, could be big. Commit to change it. Then, the important part, plan ways to meet that obstacle. This is huge. So you will encounter obstacles. You're going to have a nice plan that says, I'm going to work out every, at 4 times a week, for example. I'm going to do it on these days. And then somebody's going to invite you on one of your workout days to have a drink or to go for Mexican dinner, margaritas, or whatever the case is. What is your if-then plan? So with the if-then plan, one of the things that we like to talk about, so Lori Santos, if anyone has heard of her, she's a professor at Yale University. Amy and I did a well-being course through there. It's great. Check it out. Again, Yale University, Lori Santos, very popular course, well-being.
Yeah, the science of well-being through Coursera. Yep, it's free. So yes. It's through Coursera, and it's called The Science of Well-Being, and it's pretty awesome.
Thank you. So Lori talks about this if-then plan. So it's like, it's like a backup plan. So I'm going to give you an example for myself. I really fell out of my regular workout cadence this summer. Things happened. I fell, kind of into the habit of, in the evenings, I fell into a little bit more distraction than was necessary, a little bit more Hulu shopping, looking around for stuff that I can watch and whatever, and really getting into that because let's be honest, I was just being, trying to distract myself from what I really wanted to do, what I really needed to do, which was to get my workout in. So my plan is to reintroduce my workout. If I start to self-sabotage, oh, I'm only skipping this one night to watch this show. Oh, it's just this once. Then I will tell my husband. And that's critical for me because he doesn't let me off the hook for anything. So when you develop your if-then plans, they have to be concrete. They have to include sort of this support, the accountability buddies, saying things out loud, bringing other people into it. Because when you say things out loud, as Amy likes to say, then you need to do something about it. So critical if-then plan. And then again, you're cultivating that attitude of mindfulness, compassion. You're noting and preventing those triggers. You're riding the waves of the emotions when triggered. Again, can't always prevent those triggers. Sit with it. Pause before reacting. After the trigger has resolved, so let's say you had this trigger and you worked through it, you powered through and you got that workout done. Awesome. Celebrate or give yourself some kindness and self-compassion if you didn't. It's okay. We are not perfect humans. This is about the big picture. This isn't about every data point and checking off every box to be perfect. We'll get into that a little bit later. This is about the essence of your well-being, the essence of change. And guess what? The essence of change doesn't go like this. It goes like this, and it kind of goes around. And so, but it's the overall picture. Are you feeling better? Are you feeling healthier? That's what truly matters. A couple of things. So once that's resolved, so it's a good thing to reflect. Sit in self-reflection, and we encourage journal use at all costs. So think about what happened before the event, how you were triggered, what happened during, and then what happened afterward. So a way to sort of reflect and look back. Another thing is talking about the movement mantra mindset. So this is really about coupling a movement with a mantra to change your mindset. So for example, I got this. Woo! All right. Okay. Might be kind of cheesy, whatever, but whatever it is that, you think your mantra plus a, fist pump, for example. Then in the future, when you go like this, your mind will say, you got this. I got this. So it's coupling those things can be extremely powerful. And then finally, growth mindset. Again, likely most of you have heard the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. We aren't going to go into that a whole lot here. Just a couple of little tidbits for you here. We do have a tool on that as well. So we have a visual for you in the folder in the link that we'll share later. So things like this, a fixed mindset, maybe tend to give up a little too easily. The growth mindset, you're persistent. You're not giving up easy. You're working through it. That's growth. A fixed mindset, maybe you get defensive when someone gives you feedback. Growth mindset sees it as, wow, curiosity, open mind, opportunity for more growth. So those are sort of the fixed versus the growth. And that's what we're trying to sort of open the window on today. And we all can fall into the fixed mindset at times, right? And so in and out of things. Again, it's not a sort of linear experience. But much like repetition, same thing goes here. We're real nerds when it comes to neuroscience. We love this kind of stuff. And it is much like you're doing your workouts, right? Pumping your iron, you're getting your muscles, same thing with your mind. So the more repetition you do, the more you couple that mantra mindset, the more you do these things over and over and over, the more you rewire your brains, the more you go from a fixed to a growth mindset. It's true. And then leveraging your strengths. You probably have heard leverage your strengths, work around your weaknesses, but it's true. What are your strengths? That's the hard question. When Amy and I are doing our coaching or consulting, when you ask somebody, what are your strengths? Much easier to go, well, I'm not good at this, and I'm not good at this. And what are your strengths? I don't care about what you're not good at right now. I care about what your strengths are. Spend some time thinking about what those are. Then there's this bucket over here of things that maybe you're not so good at, and that's okay. Lean into those strengths and then work with those weaknesses. Maybe somebody else can do it. Who's on your team? And I don't mean necessarily at work, but in your personal life, what have you? Who are the people that you can partner with? That can be super powerful. You are not alone in this journey. Knowing your values, again, huge. Much like strengths, if I was to come up to you on the street and say, what are your 5 values? What are your top 5 values? Go. Could you rattle them off? Maybe some of you could rattle them off. I know for me, it would take me back a little bit, and I'd have to think about that a bit and reflect on that. Well, guess what? We have a tool for that, and we don't have it here, but you can. We'll give you information about how to access us. If you email us, we'll give you information on how to do that, and we will give you the values assessment that we've created to help you sort of parcel through all of that. And the values are so important because this is what drives you. So if you value something so much, keep that at the forefront. That is your core compass reminder of what you're working towards. Can be very powerful. So again, in this section, let's quickly connect the dots. You're getting out of your way. You're noticing those self-sabotaging behaviors. We all have them. Knowing your tendencies. Framing those, what you might feel are failures, as teachable moments, lessons learned. And then asking yourself, very important, very simple, what brings me joy? What brings me joy, and do more of those things. Now we are going to take it home with a little rejoicing with Amy.
Absolutely. So we're going to wrap up here with some rejoicing. And I wanted to just make another comment here on the what brings us joy. And we're talking about happiness and joy and strengths and positive qualities and treating yourself with kindness and all these pieces. We tend so much to go to the negative, and it's so easy. As Holly talked about before, the gremlin in our heads, and that voice thinks it's protecting us, thinks it's helping us, thinks it's not getting our expectations too high, or it's making sure that we're staying safe. But we get to make those choices. We get to lean into happiness and joy if it truly brings us happiness and joy. And you're worth being more happy than you are more sad. So we just want to reinforce that as well. So the outcomes for our rejoice section. With all of change, it's work, right? And people sometimes will not lean into change because it might be hard, or it might mean that they have to change more than one thing, and that's not something that they want to do right now. And again, as we think about what brings us joy, we don't often enough stop to celebrate and to pat ourselves and others on the back, and to really acknowledge the hard work and the progress, even if it's little tiny steps. If you've leaned left just a hair, then you've made some progress, and that's worth a celebration, however that brings you the most joy. So the outcomes for rejoicing are, in this particular section, are identifying what's now and what's next, fully embracing and celebrating who you are today and who you will become, and stepping into and owning your accountability, right? So we want to put all this together. One of the things that we have as our mantra and our tagline for Core Endeavors is from what's now to what's next. Like, life is a journey and a series of mini journeys, and the world that is always rotating. We say, oh, we're standing still. We're never actually standing still, because the earth is moving. And so if you think about when we talk about change, all of a sudden that word can make people sort of brace and get afraid and scared. But if we were to say adjust, or be flexible, or try something new, all of those are different ways to say change. And so it's how those stories and how you talk to yourselves. So we go back to Paul Wesselman Ripple's guys, couple of quotes from the beginning. Who are you becoming? Who are you becoming? Feel free to type that in if you'd like to, so that we can all rejoice with who you are becoming together. You know, we're always a work in progress. And with a growth mindset, that opens so many possibilities. And so when you think about how stuff is hard, you can also think about how cool it's going to be. And what's the reward out there? What's that outcome going to bring you? What's going to get you closer to? The other thing that we talk about is making sure, and Holly talked about this too, but do make sure that you're building in opportunities to rejoice, to spend time and attention on yourself, for yourself, just because you're you. No other real reason but to indulge yourself a little bit. That's going to help you with your motivation and your accountability. And you can put things, I know someone who's put some sort of treats on paper, so little pieces of paper into a jar. And when they get to a certain thing, they get to reach into that jar and pick out a thing. And it's like, oh my gosh, I get to watch my favorite Netflix show, an extra episode tonight, because I get to celebrate, or because I want to capture this milestone that I met in a really happy way. So we're setting the foundation here for you to take these next steps on your journey to what you're becoming. And we call it becoming, and there's no end point to that, because we are constantly evolving and constantly changing and adapting to become what's next. So the next stop on your journey, where do you go from here? We've given you a lot of questions and several tools to sort of think about, but hopefully we've also given you some inspiration and some courage to take those next steps into becoming your next best self. And so what we like to do with our workshops is say, or to ask, what's one thing, capital letters, O-N-E-T-H-I-N-G, one thing you will do, you will think, you will feel, or you will be differently when you leave this workshop today? What's one thing? I'm going to pause here for a minute to give you a time to really reflect on that. And for some people, it might come hit you square in the face. Oh my gosh, this is the one thing that I'm going to do. It may be as simple as I'm going to take time to breathe deeply several times a day. See what that does for you. The great thing about a change journey is that it's for and about you, and you get to decide what is and isn't working. So you can change your mind and your mindset as you move through this. So what's one thing you will do, think, feel, or be differently when you leave this workshop today that will get you started toward the change you want to make? Write it down. Stick it on a Post-it, as Holly talked about. Write it on your arm, write it on your hand, whatever it is that will help you stay accountable and be reminded of that one thing, because the one thing needs to start to be a habit, and habits are hard to break and hard to come by. And so the more you can practice. Look at Jamie says, I'm trying to be more cognizant of showing up for myself and positive self-talk on a regular basis. Woo! We give you a lot of credit there. By saying it out loud, you've actually done it once today. That's pretty awesome. Christopher says, gremlins come from mogwais in my life, finding food after midnight.
It's called a mogwai.
Yeah, the mogwais. And it's true. Food after midnight. Is it a blessing or is it a curse? Sometimes it's the double-edged sword, right? Absolutely. But being aware, and as a good friend of ours says, if you say it out loud, then you have to deal with it. So if it's out in the universe, either you've said it or you've written it, then there's an accountability there, and something else, some spirit somewhere knows that it's happening and can help keep you accountable. So thank you to Jamie and to Christopher for sharing about your one things. All right, Holly's going to give us a couple of clothing tidbits, and then we'll do some Q&A.
Yes. We're going to wrap it all up in a nice little bow for you, and ship you on your way to live a wonderful afternoon. And so a couple of tidbits. I mentioned perfectionism a little bit earlier, and I wanted to sort of loop back to that. Are you a procrastinator? Type in the chat. No, I'm just kidding. You don't have to type in the chat. But perfectionism and procrastination can come hand in hand. And so when you think about that, it's when is good enough good enough? Consider thinking about your goals. What's ideal? But then what's acceptable for you? What's okay? What's good enough? And so beware of the all or nothing thinking. I'm either all in or I'm all out. I'm either going, 100% in, or I'm just not going to do it. Be aware of that, because that's a trap. That's self-sabotage. There is a sweet spot. It's called balance or harmony, however you want to look at it. But again, it's your tendencies, knowing what those are, knowing what your self-sabotaging behaviors are, but also keeping in mind that perfectionism, the procrastination, and how those can lead into some of those unhealthy ways of operating, and some fuel your unhealthy habits. So again, just be aware, and it's worth noting because that's a real thing for a lot of people. And then another thing that we like to talk about that many of you are likely aware of is what is called the circles of control, concern, influence. So, sorry, here is my little guy again screaming. But here is a little diagram. Notice what we can control is, where am I? Whoop,
there you are.
Right there. That little thing in the middle. The next outer ring is what we have influence of, and the huge ring is what we're concerned about. So think about that. Again, if you need to make your own little note here and post it wherever you need to do, but this visual alone can be very powerful. We have control over ourselves. We've been talking about this the whole hour, basically. our behaviors. We don't have control over necessarily triggers always, or the thoughts that happened after that, but we do have control over what we do with those. Again, here's the screaming guy again, the space between. Okay, so we've got the trigger, the space, and the response, right? That is the power, that space in there. And so thinking about that as far as what it is I have control of in this world. Do I have control over Amy? No. I might have some influence over Amy, but I have no control over her. And she shakes her head. She knows I don't. And so much that we're concerned about. We're concerned about so many things in the world. And we have some influence about some of that stuff. We have influence about how we can lean into things. But we just don't have control over as many things as we think we do or that we think we should. So just something for you to remember as you're sort of going throughout your days. And then the final word is remember choices. You do have choices. You always have the choice on what you're going to do with your mindset. You always have that choice. That's your power. That's your power. And so if you haven't taken much away from this workshop, and we hope you have, but take that piece of it away. You own your mindset. Nobody else owns your mindset. So with that being said, we wanted to just give a little opportunity here if people have questions that you wanted to type in the chat at all, things that you were hoping that maybe we address, that we didn't address, any other comments that maybe you might have. We just wanted to ensure that we had a little bit of a buffer of time for you to let us know what you were sort of thinking or anything else you wanted us to sort of talk about and we didn't.
Okay, I think we have a couple questions. The first one, I'm going to take Chris's statement and use it as a question. So he said one thing he's working on is avoiding negative people, work, family. Do you have any tips on how to avoid or maybe deal with some of those negative voices in your life?
Yes, we do have a couple of thoughts. I guess we can each sort of chime in a little bit. As Holly was saying, you know, a lot of times we don't have control over. So if you're at a family gathering and you don't know that great Uncle Frank is going to be there, and then great Uncle Frank says some things that trigger you, and then you're not having a good time. So mindset. Right? Mindset. You can't control what Uncle Frank is going to say or how he's going to show up, but you can control how you're going to accept or not accept the triggers that are there. So there's that piece. The other, and this is the bigger piece and outside of this workshop, is sometimes we do need to make hard choices about what is serving us well in our lives. And it's really, really hard when you realize that a connection, a relationship, especially with family, is something that is not serving you well. And to get some courage around that and to honor yourself and to follow through in ways that are going to keep you your happiest and healthiest.
And I will just add into that what Amy is describing is called boundaries, really. Yep. And boundaries are healthy. And it's okay to have them. And again, it can be challenging when the people that maybe we love the most are the people that we're avoiding the most. And that you can have those two things happening at once. And so it's about the boundaries, healthy boundaries. It's okay to set sort of that limit and do it in a respectful way. And like Amy was pointing out, if you are at that event with Uncle Bob or whatever name you chose, Frank, the power again is your response, your reaction. And that does take practice. It takes time. But we promise you that with time and with practice, you can find yourself responding differently to those people or events that
it's embracing that space between, right? Like if, especially with a trigger, we are more likely to snap into turbo response mode right away. And so if you can breathe, when you feel yourself getting triggered, your mantra mindset movement, right? So what is something you can do to cue yourself and to buy yourself a couple of seconds of time to respond in an intentional and mindful way?
Okay. Another question we had was kind of like, do you have any suggestions on those spaces that we can find throughout our house? I know we've all been home for a while, so maybe do you have any hot tips or hot takes on some to mix it up a little bit, maybe some refreshing places to find that space for quiet?
Yeah, we actually do. And Amy, you can jump in here too. But this is a thing that we tackled on a previous workshop that we did. We talked about environment, right? And environment is huge. And in particular in mind with when the pandemic had just sort of risen to a really high sort of initial level, people were just struggling with that sort of space in their home. So what we encourage is really just intentionally design that space. And so we understand that space can be at a premium in homes, especially if you have kids and dogs and all kinds of things. But where's that one little place? How can you make it your own? How do you put, a couple of comfortable pillows or a throw or a book or a meditation or, a meditation book or what have you. So it really is about you have to create that space on your own. And sometimes right now we can get outside to create the space and you can get out of your home, but in the dead of winter, it makes it really hard, especially when you're living, working, doing everything at home. So our recommendation would really be to create that environmental space that is yours and yours alone.
The other thing is that you can create it in a portable fashion. So you can have your little My Creative Space, My Special Place toolkit, and literally have a little box that has your favorite things in it, like your favorite stone to rub, and maybe your favorite candle that you can light, and a picture that you want to put up, and the pillow that you're going to sit on. And you can go into a closet in that case, because you've got those things that are inspiring and comforting you. And that's the dream space and that meditation space. It's nice to have that balance or that harmony of comfort and inspiration. You don't want to get so comfortable that you get complacent. So what's going to make you feel like you can dig deep and be comfortable and courageous with yourself, and also be uplifted and inspired. But think it and don't overthink it. I think that's the piece, is people like, well, I need this and then I need that, and we need to have all this, and it needs to be a bright shiny window, and where. If you have it and those things speak to you, but otherwise take your little toolkit and sit in the driveway and listen to the birds and be one with yourself.
Okay. I think we have time for maybe one or two more. But another question we had was, do you have any ideas on how to rejoice or to celebrate?
So yes, and that's really personal, right? Like what works for one person isn't going to work for the other. So a couple of things I can share what works for me, Holly can share a couple of things that work for her, and Hannah, we could even hear from you too on what you do to celebrate. But it might be having that one piece of decadent chocolate that you don't allow yourself to have very frequently because it's either expensive or you have to go to the store to get it, or you have one, you'd eat the whole thing, all those kinds of things. But what's that one sort of special treat? Or is it, I'm going to allow myself to stream that movie that I've been waiting and I didn't want to pay the $7 on Amazon Prime, or whatever it is. But what are the things that really bring you joy, that always just meet your happy spot? Those are the things to do. It could be cooking yourself a great meal. It could be ordering out and having something brought in. It could be taking a drive out into the country. It could be going for a walk. So those are some of the things that I do to celebrate. I have a special wine glass that I really like, that I'm always afraid that I'm going to break it. And so I don't use it all that often. And so when I really want to feel special and treat myself, I use that special wine glass. So Holly, how about you?
Yeah, those are all really good examples. For me, I don't really often treat myself to sort of a nice dinner, or, going out on a sort of a nice fancy kind of a date. And so those are sort of ways that I would celebrate. And typically, with either my spouse, my daughter, other family members, I like to sort of bring people into the fold. Oh, Amy, of course. Yes. As well. So, but again, as Amy said, it's very, very personal. And it's not to say, we talked about these habits of distraction, whatever. It's not to say that Netflix doesn't serve a purpose, or it's not to say that piece of chocolate doesn't serve a purpose. Mm-hmm. So it's not the all or nothing, but it is about that balance and that harmony. And so choosing what that celebration means for you. Maybe it means I'm going to buy myself a pair of brand new shoes or something like that. So that could be really, really meaningful for you. And so it is critical, though, to figure out what personally that means for you, and purposely build that in to when you're switching your habits. Build that in along the way, because that keeps you going, really.
Okay. Well, I guess I can share a little bit. I wouldn't say I'm particularly the best at celebrating like my personal achievements. So something that I said my one thing was working on rejoicing or celebrating. So that was my one takeaway from today's event. But a way I've been trying to combat that is to think about like my life as like a journey. It's a long hike. It's a trail up to the top of the mountain where I've reached my goal or dream. But to just realize there are those moments where there's the bench where you might need to take a break and you might need to sit and rest and just reflect upon what's happened in the past and how you've gotten to your moment. So I'm starting small and working my way towards the rejoice phase, but that's kind of how I'm combating it. But I think we are at time. And Amy and Holly, I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here with us today and to share all of your knowledge. I had a lot of takeaways for myself. So I just wanted to say thank you both for sharing all of your knowledge with all of us.
We have one closing thing, if we might, because we do have a couple of things that are not included in the folder. So you put our support at Core Endeavors email address in there. And so if you are interested in being on our mailing list, we are going to do a full-blown series of Being to Becoming starting in the fall. We'll have to see how many people are interested and kind of what timeframes work. But if you're interested in knowing more about that and other awesome opportunities for growth, send us an email at the support@coreendeavors.com and put growth series into the subject line. And then if you're interested in that values assessment, email us there with values or values assessment in the subject line, and we'll make sure that we get that out to you.
And that information is included in the link folder in the Google Drive folder too. So don't feel like you have to jot it all down. So that's out there for you too, just as sort of a little reminder.
Yep.
And thank you for having us. We had a wonderful
thank you
time.
so much.
Thank you for joining us, everybody who's out there. And we really appreciate you being here.
Yeah. Thank you for investing in us and yourselves.
Absolutely. And I feel like that's the perfect place to end it. So I'm just going to say happy Wednesday, everyone. And thank you so much for tuning in.
Bye.